So you can get the equivalent motor resistance, and the equivalent motor reactance will be X01, that will be equal, that is referred to R01, and X01 are referred to the stator. So R01 will be equal to the stator resistance R1 plus the equivalent resistance corresponding to the rotor part, that is R2 dash, that is R2 by K square. And the X01 can obtain from Z01 and R01, that is root of Z01 square minus R01 square, and R2 dash is equal to R01 minus R1. This is also important while drawing the circle diagram. So next we will see the equivalent circuit of the induction motor. So here you will be having, this is the rotor part. Rotor part will be S, E2 will be induced EMF, and R2 and SX2 will be there. Suppose if you are dividing by S, you will be getting X2 and R2 by S, and this is corresponding to the rotor input power or the air gap power, and this can be split into two, R2 and R2 into 1 minus S by S, and this will be corresponding to the rotor copper loss, and this will be corresponding to the rotor mechanical power. So if you are referring all referred to the stator side, you will be can see that the stator resistance R1, the stator reactance X1, and you can have the circuit like this. And this is the equivalent circuit. Next, we will move on to the circle diagram. Circle diagram is nothing but you can have a phasor diagram gives the relation for a single circuit condition. Suppose if you want a large variety of operating conditions, you can go for the graphical representation known as the circle diagram. So in the circle diagram, that is a phasor diagram drawn in one plane for more than one circuit conditions. So this diagrammatic representation is easy to understand than the theoretical and the mathematical descriptions. So from no load test, you are getting the no load current and the no load angle, and from the short circuit test, you are getting the short circuit current and the angle between these two. And in the circle diagram, as you can see, the series, if you are considering a series RL circuit, the locus of the current is a circle. So suppose if you are having a constant voltage source, as you can see, and here you are having a reactance and a variable resistance will be there, and the current passing through this will be V divided by Z. Z is root of R square plus XL square. So this, if you are drawing, that is IL will be equal to V by Z. So if you are drawing an impedance triangle, the resistance will be this resistance R, this is XL, and the impedance will be equal to root of R square plus XL square. And if you are taking sine theta component, sine theta will be equal to the reactance X divided by Z. If you are combining the current equation and the sine theta, you will get one expression, that is V by Z is I. So V by X into sine theta you will be getting if you are combining the sine theta expression. So we can see that that is the R is equal to, that is in polar form, R is equal to A sine theta form, or A is the, that will be having a locus of circle, and this A is the diameter of the circle. So the diameter here is V by XL. So it will be having different operating points can be taken from this one. The similar way, if you are considering the rotor of the induction machine, the I2 dash we can represent from the equivalent circuit as V1 divided by root of R1 plus R2 dash by S the whole square plus X1 plus X2 dash the whole by the whole square. Then you can have from the impedance triangle, you are getting it as R1 plus R2 dash by S, and here the impedance is X1 plus X2 dash. So if you are having the impedance, this impedance will be equal to root of R1 plus R2 dash by S the whole square plus X1 plus X2 dash the whole square. So if you are taking sine theta corresponding to this one, sine theta component will be equal to X1 plus X2 dash, the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. So you will get this one. So I2 dash will be equal to V1 by Z, and here you are having X1 plus X2 dash by Z. So we can rearrange this one. You can multiply and divide by X1 plus X2 dash. You will get expression as I2 dash will be equal to V1 by X1 plus X2 dash into sine theta. So which represents a circle in polar form, that is R is equal to A sine theta manner with the diameter A. Here this the locus of then I2 dash will be a circle of diameter this one V1 divided by X1 plus X2 dash. So from the no load test we are getting the no load power factor angle 50, and from the block rotor test we are getting the short circuit power factor angle, and the short circuit line current, if normal voltage were applied during the block rotor test, you can obtain from the ISN equation, and the power input, if normal voltage were applied during the block rotor condition also, you can obtain from this relation, that is WSN. Just you have to take WSN and the short circuit power equal to the normal voltage divided by the short circuit voltage. So take the ratio, you will get this one. This is also an important factor while taking the power scale in the case of circle diagram. And the equivalent reactance refer to the stator normally x01 that is equal to x1 plus x2 by k square, and x that is equal to x1 plus x2 dash, and the equivalent resistance will be R01 that is equal to R1 plus R2 by k square or R1 plus R2 dash, and the load resistance is R2 dash into 1 minus S by S. The total current will be I1 is equal to I0 plus I2 dash, so that will be always a locus will be a circle. So the operating characteristics of induction motor can be computed. This is a circle diagram. So we can see this is the voltage axis, and this is the reference axis, and this O, that is the origin. So from the origin, so you have to consider no load power factor phi 0, and then I0 will be lagging the voltage by an angle phi 0, and the I0 current, the no load current is from 0 to this O dash point. So this will be representing the I0, no load current I0. And similarly, you can draw one curve that is from the short circuit test, you are getting the power factor as phi SC. So that short circuit power factor, you can draw the ISN current. So before drawing this one, you have to take the suitable current scale, then only it will be compact with the graph. So suppose if the ISN you are obtaining is 100 ampere, then you have to select 1 centimeter as equal to 10 ampere. So you will be getting it as 10 centimeter is sufficient to draw this ISN. So then you are having from the no load test you are getting I0, and from the short circuit test you are getting ISN value. So if you are joining this tip of the I0 and the tip of the ISN, you will get a line joining O dash and A. This O dash and A represents the output line. So this output line, if you are taking the perpendicular bisector of this O dash A or the output line, then it will meet a point in the reference, the horizontal line that will be starting from the tip of the I0. You can see here you are having the reference, can have the reference axis, and the tip of the I0 also you have to draw a line horizontal to the reference axis. This is the line. And here, suppose if you are drawing a perpendicular bisector of the output line, and then it will, if you are extending it to meet in the horizontal line drawn from the point I0, you can see a point will be obtained, that is C. That point is the center. You can choose that as the center and then take this O dash C as the radius. You can draw a semicircle which will be passing through the point A, the tip of the ISN point A. So you will get a semicircle. So this semicircle at this point A, you can draw a vertical line. So this vertical line will meet at 2 points. One at E, that is the horizontal line drawn from O dash, and another will be meeting at F, that will be the reference, meeting at the reference axis. Okay, so you are having A and E and F will be there, but this A and E represents the total copper losses of the machine. So this total copper loss has to be divided into 2, that is the total copper loss and stator copper loss will be there. So in order to divide this stator copper loss and the rotor copper loss, we have to take one ratio, that is this A D is to DE, that will be equal to R2 dash is to R1. R2 dash is nothing but R01 obtained from the block rotor test minus R1, that is DC resistance, and you are having a DC resistance value. So you have to take R2 dash is to R1. So you have to divide in such a way as to get the point D. Suppose if you are getting the point D, this AD represents the total copper loss and the rotor copper loss, and this DE represents the stator copper loss. And this point D means if you are joining from the O dash, tip of the I0 point O dash, if you are joining to this point D, you will get a torque line. So this A and F, that represents the PSN. So PSN is the power input at block rotor condition under normal voltage if you are applying the normal voltage. So you can take the power scale by considering the PSN divided by this AF will give you that will give you the power scale corresponding to the circle diagram. So once you are getting the top line, you can have this rotor copper loss and the stator copper loss division. So if you are having a full load current of 10 ampere, then what you have to do is you have to take this as the center origin, and then you have to draw an arc that will be intersecting at the point in the circle, and this point you can take, or you can choose any arbitrary point in the semicircle, then draw a vertical line. So this vertical line will be meeting at output line, that is known as the K. Then the next point is L, that is meeting at the torque line, and the next point will be meeting at the horizontal line drawn from the tip of the I0. The another will be meeting at the point N, that is in the reference axis. So from this you will be getting the different parameters of the induction motor. So if you are having H, if you are taking H and the point at which this is meeting at the intersecting at the output line, this point K, if you are taking, that is the output power of the machine. If you are taking this K and L, means if you are extending this, you can see that is the rotor copper loss. K, if you are extending, you will be getting this point, and L, if you are extending, you will be getting this point. So this KL is nothing but the rotor copper loss. And similarly, L is the point at the torque line. So this L and M, if you are taking, you have to extend, you can see that this is a stator copper loss. And you are having M and N will be there. This M and N will represent the constant loss, or the core loss plus the friction and the windage losses. Again, you are having the HL is there. So this H and L, if you are taking, that is HK plus KL, that is the motor output power plus the rotor copper loss. If you are taking, this H and L will be taken, and this H and L will be representing the rotor input power. So if you are considering O and H, if you are measuring this one, you will get the line current, and the angle at which it is making with the voltage, you will be getting the power factor angle, or from that you can obtain the power factor also. So the efficiency is, you can obtain as the output power divided by the input power. So the output power is HK and the input power is HN. So you can have the efficiency value. And the slip also is the rotor copper loss divided by the rotor input. So the rotor copper loss is KL and the rotor input power is HL. So you can find out the slip also. So this is the construction of the all the steps I have written here. So this is all the parameters. So next one is how you will find out the maximum quantities from the circle diagram. So for finding out the maximum quantities, you are having the output line is O and A, and you are having the torque line as O and E. Suppose if it is O and E, then draw a line, draw a line parallel to the torque line, and it will be tangential to the circle. And then you have to get the exact point. What you have to do is you have to take from the center, draw a line perpendicular to the torque line and extend it, and that will meet at certain point in the line that we have drawn parallel to the torque line. And then you have to draw a vertical line to the torque line. You will get, this will be the maximum torque. You can measure the distance and you can convert it. And similarly, you are having the output power line will be there. You have to get the maximum output, means draw a line parallel to this OA, and that will be tangential to the circle. And similar way, from the center C, draw a line perpendicular to the output line and extend to meet at this point. Then draw a vertical line to the output line. You will get, this will be the maximum output. In the similar way, you can draw the input, maximum input also. So from the reference axis, draw a line parallel to the circle. That will be the maximum point. And then you can draw a vertical line. So that will be the maximum input. Thus, we can see the maximum input and maximum output and the maximum power. Then you have to draw the slip line and the efficiency line. So how will you draw the slip line and the efficiency line? Means you have to extend the output line to meet the reference axis at O dash, and similarly in the backward direction. Similarly in the forward direction, you have to choose one point Q, and this draw a line that is parallel to the torque line. Draw a line parallel to the torque line from this point. So this will be the line. This is the line. and this will be having one endpoint. So from that endpoint, where will you get that endpoint means draw a vertical line from this tip of the I0A, then you will be getting the endpoint. So this is the slip line. So you can divide this into 100 equal divisions. You will be getting the different slip for the different operating conditions. And in order to get an efficiency line, draw a line that is parallel to the reference line from the point Q, and a vertical has to be drawn from the line, that is the point you are extending to the backward direction to meet at the reference axis O dash point. Then draw a vertical point. You will be getting it will be meeting at the line that is drawn from the Q, and you can divide this into 100 equal points. You will be getting the efficiency line. So next we will move on to the cogging and the teeth locking or the magnetic locking. So the cogging and the teeth locking is mainly with the squirrel cage machine. So the stator and the rotor teeth will be locked together. So that is known as the cogging or the teeth locking. So this will happen, that is when the number of the rotor teeth is equal to the number of the stator teeth, this will be normally happening. So here the reluctance of the magnetic path will be minimum, or we can say the magnetic pull will be maximum, and at this condition the motor refuses to start. So here in the case of if you are applying full voltage or the fraction of the voltage, this will not work. Right. Or you can say the heavy magnetic pull will be there, and the starting torque developed by the machine is insufficient to overcome the radial magnetic pull. So we can reduce the cogging either by choosing the number of stator slot greater than the number of rotor slots, and should varies. That means never made equal to the same. Or you can have a skewed rotor that is slightly twisting the rotor teeth. That is also possible to reduce the cogging effect. In the cogging and crawling are less eminent in the case of a wound rotor because of high starting torque. Next, we are moving on to the crawling. The crawling is the squirrel cage induction motor. It is tendency of the machine to run at very low speed, as low as 1/7 of the synchronous speed, or we can say it is the motor will run stably at subnormal speed. So this is due to the fact that the flex wave produced by the stator winding is not purely sine wave. It consists of the fundamental component is a complex wave. So it consists of the fundamental wave and odd harmonics. Normally the even harmonics are absent because of the half wave symmetry. And the odd harmonics like third, fifth and seventh will be there. And this third will be normally absent because it is a balanced circuit. So it will be displaced by 120 degrees. So it will neutralize each other. So the third will be absent. Normally fifth and seventh will be there. And this third, fifth and seventh means this will be rotating with the fundamental will be rotating with the synchronous speed ns, and the fifth will be rotating with ns by 5, and the seventh will be rotating with ns by 7, and the third will be rotating with ns by 8. So the tendency of the rotor to run stably at a subsynchronous speed is known as the crawling. So here the harmonic torques will be developed, and the total motor torque consists of three components. One is the fundamental torque with synchronous speed ns, the fifth harmonic torque with synchronous speed ns by 5, and the seventh harmonic torque with the synchronous speed ns by 7. And if you are neglecting the higher order harmonics, as you can see, this is the conventional diagram, and here you are having the seventh harmonic and you are having the fifth harmonic. So if you are considering the fifth harmonic means it will be having a phase difference. Fifth harmonic means 5 into 120. So 5 into 120 means you are getting it as 600. So 600 means 2 into 360, that is 720 minus 120, you are getting 600 value. So it will be having a phase difference of minus 120. So minus 120 means this flux will always set up a revolving speed in the reverse direction. So in the reverse direction. So that means it will always oppose the fundamental torque. So this will always cause a braking action also. Since it is having a lesser magnitude, we can neglect that one. So it will be having two dip will be there. One dip is corresponding to the fifth harmonic and another dip is corresponding to the seventh harmonic. When you are taking the seventh harmonic, this will be having a phase difference 7 into 120, that is equal to 840. So 840 equal to 2 into 360. If you are splitting 2 into 360, that is 720 plus 120, you will be getting 840. So that is, it will be having a phase difference of plus 120. So once it is having a plus 120 means this will be set up a speed that is in the forward direction, or it will aid the fundamental component. So you are having the fundamental torque and you are having the seventh harmonic torque will be there. So in the fifth harmonic, as you can see, minus 120 in the reverse direction and rotates opposite, and fifth harmonic torque will be there. It is small and can be neglected. But in the seventh harmonic, it is 840 plus 120 forward direction, same direction as that of the fundamental torque. Two dips will be there, one at 1 by 5th and 1 by 7th. So if you are neglecting this fifth harmonic, you will be getting only two components, that is the fundamental torque and the seventh harmonic torque. As you can see, if you are neglecting the fifth harmonic, since it is small, you will be getting this fundamental component and you are getting the seventh harmonic component. So the seventh harmonic component, as you can see, if you are having a constant load, the mechanical load, the shaft is constant load, then this at this point you can see the torque developed by the motor falls below this constant torque level. So that means here you are occurring the crawling speed. Even though it is below the torque produced by the motor falls below the constant low torque, it will be stably operating at ns by 7. So that means at subnormal speed, subsynchronous speed, it is having certain stable operation. So this is known as the crawling effect. So we can see the below that is the, if the mechanical load on the shaft involves constant load torque, the torque developed by the motor may fall below the torque, and then it will be run at nearly 1 by 7th of the normal speed corresponding to the subnormal speed. This is called crawling. So the crawling can be avoided by using the proper choice of coil span and the distribution coils. And then we will move on to the vibration and noise. The space harmonic fluxes are normally produced by the bindings, slottings, magnetic saturation, and inequalities in the air gap. These harmonic fluxes induce voltages and circulate harmonic currents. Again, the interaction between the harmonic current and the harmonic fluxes will result in the harmonic torques and vibrations. And the mainly this is due to the non-sinusoidal nature. And in Fourier series, as you know, it is having a non-sinusoidal, since due to the half-wave symmetry, the even harmonics can be eliminated. The same thing as we have discussed. So next we will move on to the starters. Starters of an induction motor means at starting, the starting current will be very high. So then normally it will take 5 to 7 times the full load current. So that will affect the operation of the other devices, and the starting torque will be always proportional to the square of the applied voltage. That is, starting torque will be equal to K into E2 square S into R2 divided by R2 square plus SX2 the whole square. From the equivalent circuit, we can derive this, that is torque proportional to phi 2 I2 cos phi 2. So from that we can derive the expression. So you have to reduce this starting current and to increase the starting torque. This may cause the continuous maintenance and the greater chance of unscheduled shutdowns and short component life will be there. Anyhow, we have to reduce the starting current. So the functions are the start and stop of the motor, limit the inrush current, and automatic control is possible. The over voltage and under voltage is possible. For the slip ring induction motor, you are having rotor rheostat starter, and for squirrel cage rotor, you are having DOL starter, primary resistance starter, auto transformer starter, and star delta starter. So in the case of slip ring, you can connect, you can add external resistance in the rotor faces, and this external resistance through the slip rings. If full voltage is applied across the stators are fully included in the circuit at starting, and so that the starting current can be reduced. If you are having the full resistance, that means you can reduce the starting current. And the external resistance connected in each phase of the rotor circuit not only reduce the starting current but increases the starting torque also, since we are having an improvement in power factor. So this adding the external resistance in the rotor circuit reduces the starting current, increases the starting torque, and improves the power factor. Then in slip ring induction motor, as you can see, this three-phase supply is there. This is the stator and this is the rotor part, and the rotor part, the variable resistance are connected through the slip rings and the brushes. During the starting condition, it will be having the maximum resistance, so the starting current can be limited. And when the machine runs, then the resistance can be cut out, and when it is reaching at the full load speed, then the resistance are totally cut out and it will be short circuited. So we can see the figure also. You can have this connection through the stator. You are having the three-phase supply, and this is the rotor part, and that is connected to the adjustable rotor resistance through the slip rings. So the full starting resistance is connected during the starting period, and when the rotor begins to rotate, gradually cut out. When it is attaining a full load speed, starting resistance are cut out completely and short circuited. And moving on to the direct online starting. In the direct online starting, you are directly connected to the machine, so the supply. So as you can see here, you are having a coil will be there. This is an electromagnetic contactor. Then you are having a start and stop switch will be there. And this coil is controlled by the start and stop switch. This is start switch will be held open by the spring, and this is held closed by the spring. And once this A is the auxiliary contact and this M represents the main contact. And this coil will be, when you are pressing the start button, means this coil will be energized through the lines, and this main contact and the auxiliary contact are closed, and this A and small a and B are shorted. And then if you are, suppose if you are releasing the pressure on the start button, then also this coil will be in the energized condition, then the motor will be connected to the supply mains. But if you the stop button is pressing, if you are pressing the stop button, what happens is the coil will be disconnected, or the coil will be de-energized, and the motor will be disconnected. Okay. So it will be having an under voltage protection and over voltage protection. Under voltage protection is when the supply is not sufficient or there is a failure of supply, then the coil C will be de-energized. Over voltage protection means if any overload occurs, the thermal overload relay will be in operation. Here it will, the temperature rise will be there, and excessive voltage drop will be developed, only used for machines less than 1.5 kW. And the torque equation corresponding to this will be, the rotor copper loss will be equal to S into rotor input, or you can have the developed torque will be equal to 3I2 square R2 divided by S into omega. So from that you will get the torque expression as I2 square by S, or I2 is proportional to I1, so we can have the relation like this. So if you are taking the starting torque, S will be equal to 0. So you can have K into IST square by S. S is equal to 1. So you can have this expression, and full load torque can be taken. So T start by TF will be equal to this expression, or you can have the starting torque TST can be taken as the full load torque into ISN by IF the whole square into full load slip. Okay, SF represents the full load slip. So in the case of primary resistance starting, so you are having starting resistors are there, that starting resistors are connected in series with the stator winding. So you can have a reduced voltage can be applied to this part. So here also in the starting condition, the full resistance will be there. In the running condition, the resistance will be cut out. So this is the smooth starting of the machines is possible. As the motors pick up speed, the resistors are cut out in steps and finally short circuited. So here also you will be having an expression, starting torque and the full load torque will be there. You have to take the ratio corresponding to this one. So you can see this will be x square times the torque obtained by the direct switching if you are comparing these two. And in the primary resistance starting, you are having the advantages: smooth acceleration, high power factor during starting, and less expensive than auto transformer starter. Disadvantages are heat will be there and low torque efficiency, and expensive resistors has to be provided, and it is mainly for small machines. When you are going to the auto transformer starter, you can see the auto transformer is connected. So you can tap this one. So different tappings can be provided to reduce the voltage, and you will be getting the fraction of the voltage will be there. Thus you can control the current. So here, as you can see, here you are having the auto transformer V by root 3. If you are having the different tappings, then you will be getting KV by root 3 factor. So here also you have to find out the relation for the starting torque. The starting torque, since you are having the supply current, that will be equal to the primary current of the auto transformer, that is K times the secondary current of the auto transformer. The secondary current is nothing but I1 by I2 will be equal to K. So you will be getting K into ISN. So that is equal to K square times ISN, or if you are taking the relation between these two, you will get the starting torque will be K square times the torque obtained by the direct switching. So here also you can reduce the torque. In the case of the advantages of this one are the voltage is reduced by the transformation ratio, and the current and the power drawn from the supply are reduced. Internal losses can be reduced. Highest starting torque possible. Adjustment of starting voltage by the selection of proper tap on the auto transformer. More motor current will be larger, can be employed in star connected as well as delta connected. Disadvantages are low power factor and higher cost in case of lower output rating motors. When you are moving to the start delta starter, this is the most commonly used type. As you can see, during the start condition, this will be in the delta operating mode, and during the running condition, it will be so during the running condition, it will be in the star mode. Okay. So here, as you can see, if it is a star connected to 1, then this is the line voltage, and the phase voltage will be VL by root 3. And the line current and the phase current remains the same. And at starting, as you can see, since it is in the star, it is having 57.7% of the line phase voltage will be only 57.7% of the line voltage. As the motor attains 80% of the full load speed, then it will be connected to the delta to a changeover switch. And then this method is cheap. And the star delta starter provides a stator of three-phase induction motor is designed for delta connection during its normal operation, and it is unsuitable where the voltage exceeds 3000 volt and excessive number of stator turns are required at that condition, and it is limited to 4 kW to 20 kW. And the star delta squirrel cage induction motor, again you have to take the star connected one, V phase will be equal to VL by root 3, and the current will be equal to I phase, the same. And the delta connected V phase and the VL will be the same, but the current will be equal to root 3 I phase. If you are taking the ratio, you will be getting 1 by 3 factor. So we can see that at start, the starting torque will be 1 by 3 times the direct online starting. The starting torque is reduced to 1/3 of the starting torque obtained by the DOL switching. So the advantages of the squirrel cage induction motor while you are having a star delta starter is simple and rugged construction, cheap and efficient, suitable for high inertia and long acceleration loads, and good torque by current performance. And the disadvantages are the motor needs to be delta connected, means in the normal operation 6 terminals of the stator winding are to be brought out. And reduction in voltage is fixed, and the starting torque is low. The disadvantages, that is 33% of the starting torque is only there. Limited in applications where high starting torque is not required, and suitable for the line voltage exceeding 3000 volt. So these are the references. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mohammed has asked, can you please explain the slip line and efficiency line once again?
Okay, fine. The slip line means, slip line is nothing but try to draw a line parallel to the torque line. So if you are drawing a line parallel to the torque line, and remember you have to take the output line has to be extended back, and it should meet at the reference point. And if it is, I will take that slide also. So it should meet at the reference point, and if you are drawing a line parallel to the torque line, then that torque line you have to extend it from the Q point. Then you have to take the point, means from the I0 point you have to draw a vertical line to get the end position, and then you will be getting the slip line. And this slip line you can divide it into 100 equal divisions. Suppose if you have to get the efficiency line, means draw a line parallel to the reference line from the Q point, then you have to get an end point. So the end point will be obtained by the line joining the output line. When you are extending to the reference axis, you will get one O dash point. That O dash point you have to draw a vertical line, so that will be meeting at the parallel line. So that will be the end point. So that is the efficiency line. That efficiency line can be divided into 100 equal points. Then you will be getting the slip line and the efficiency line. I will show you once again. So this one, simple. So this is, you can see, this is the output line, right? This is the output line. This output line you have to extend, and you have to meet the point at the O dash point. O dash point means through the origin you are drawing on reference line. So this output line has to be extended to meet at O dash point, and this has to be extended in the forward direction also. Take an appropriate point Q, and from the Q, this torque line, draw a line parallel to the torque line. Is it clear? Is the draw a line parallel to the torque line from the point Q. Then you will be having one end point has to be there. You are having a start point, but you are having an end point should be there. So what you have to do is you have to draw a vertical, and that should meet at the I0 tip. So that means this is OA, that is the I0 point. So this I0 vector, so the tip of the I0 you have to draw a vertical line. So that will be meeting at this point. So you can divide, this is a slip line, you have to divide it into 100 equal divisions. Then you can take at any operating point, you will be getting the various points. So here, this is a slip line. If you have to draw the efficiency line, means you have to draw a line parallel to this reference axis. Then from this point Q, then this will be having a start point, but it is not having an end point. So how will you get the end point? The end point has to be obtained from drawing a line, vertical line from this O dash point. O dash point is the line when you are extending backwards, that will be meeting at the reference point. So from the line you have to draw a vertical line that will be meeting at this point. You have to divide this into 100 equal divisions, you will get the efficiency line. So otherwise you can directly taken from the circle diagram, that is the motor output divided by the motor input, or you can take the slip will be equal to rotor copper loss by rotor input. So the rotor copper loss and the rotor input and the factor is the air gap power. If you are having PG, that's equal to 3I2 square R2 by S, and you are having the rotor copper loss as 3I2 square R2, and the mechanical power will be 3I2 square R2 into 1 minus S by S. And if you are taking the ratio, that is the air gap power is the copper loss is to the mechanical power, you will be getting the factor 1 is to S is to 1 minus S. Simply you have to rearrange you will be getting 1 is, that means the rotor copper loss will be S times the rotor input, and the rotor mechanical power will be 1 minus S times the equation like this. So from that you will get the slip factor will be equal to rotor copper loss divided by the rotor input, because the rotor copper loss will be S times the rotor input, and you are getting it as the divided by the rotor input. So you can have the slip factor. So you can either you can taken from the direct from the circle diagram also. That's also possible. But this is the easy way to draw. You will get the value correctly. Okay. Clear?
Okay, ma'am.
I have answered his answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next is, what do you mean by skin effect, and how is it going to affect the efficiency?
Okay. It's okay. The skin effect means the tendency of the alternating current to concentrate near the surface of the conductor. So the area of cross section will reduce. That means R is equal to rho L by A. If the area of cross section reduces, the resistance increases. So the resistance increases means when you are having a DC resistance, simply you are having V by I ratio. So if you have to consider that factor in the case of the skin effect, that means the AC resistance will be always more than the DC resistance value. So normally this factor will be varying from 1.2 to 1.75 times. So that's why the AC resistance, when you are taking for in the case of machines, you have to multiply it with the factor that is the skin effect factor. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Priya.
Yeah. Then there is another question.
Okay. Okay.
What is a torque line, and why is it called a torque line?
So torque line means you can see here. Here you can see the torque line. So the torque line means you are dividing this point. You are having the total. You will see this one. Okay. So the torque line means, as you can see, this is the total loss associated with the total loss. You can see this A and E and F, A, D, E and F. You will be getting the full power input at the under normal voltage condition. If you are dividing this AE into R2 dash is to R1, you will be getting the different losses associated with one. So that means this will give you the if you are taking from H and L. So the H and L represents the rotor input power. So the rotor input power means the torque, and the rotor input power means the power will be equal to T into omega. So you can say this will be the torque corresponding to the torque line corresponding to the machine. So that means that divides the rotor copper loss and the stator copper loss into two parts. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Then will the maximum torque line change if the motor works for longer time?
The maximum torque line means this is the locked condition, or the, you can see this is the locked condition. So this is the locked input, the locked input condition. The maximum torque line means you will be getting the maximum torque when R2 is equal to Sx2. So the maximum torque will be always equal to K into 1 by 2x2. So depending upon the reactance value, so you will be getting the maximum value, and depending upon the you are having the, if you are, that is independent of the resistance, because if you are having a low resistance or a high resistance, the maximum torque always will be remains the same. But it depends upon the X value.
Okay. Then there is a question. Could you kindly explain as to why the magnetizing current, no load current of induction motor is higher when compared with the transformer?
Okay. So the no load current means when you are taking the no load condition, you are only having the current as the, since you are not connecting any load to the circuit, right? If you are not connecting any load to the circuit means you will be having only the stator and the exciting part will be there. So only the no load component will be there, and that can be divided into two parts. That is the IW, the working component, and the magnetizing component. The working component means that will be passing through the no load reactance path and the active path, and you are having the magnetizing component that will be flowing through the magnetizing reactance path. So this when you are in the no load condition, always it will draw lot of magnetizing current, and that means this will be highly inductive in nature. So once it is having a highly inductive structure means always the current will be lagging the voltage by an angle, and that means that this no load condition always the power factor will be less than 0.5. So from the 2 wattmeter method, we can see if you are having the angle as greater than 60 degree, then the power factor will be less than 0.5. Or if you are having the 2 wattmeter method, this W1 will be positive and the W2 will be negative, or we will be getting the total power as W1 minus W2. Suppose if you are having an angle as 60 degree, then the power factor will be 0.5 and the W1 will be positive, but the 1 wattmeter will read 0. Then you will be getting the total power will be simply 1 wattmeter reading. So you can see it will be having a highly inductive in nature, and that will draw more magnetizing current to meet the okay.
Okay, ma'am. And we have request from 2 people. That can you explain the circle diagram once again? Circle diagram.
Okay, sure. Okay, fine. I will explain. It is slow. Okay. Circle diagram. So the circle diagram means, how will you draw the circle diagram means, you have to factors from the no load test and the block rotor test. So you can see this is the origin O, and you are having, this is the no load component I0 from the no load test. No load test, when you are conducting, you will be getting the no load current I0, and this no load current I0 you have to draw with the power factor phi 0, and this phi 0, if you are drawing with an angle phi 0, and this current will be lagging the voltage by an angle phi 0, you can draw I0. This is the tip of the I0, and you have to draw a line, that is horizontal line, parallel to the reference axis. From the tip of the I0, you will get a line, that is, let it be O dash, M, C, E, G, etc. Okay. Then what you have to do is you have to draw a ISN line. So ISN you will be obtaining from the block rotor test. So at an angle block rotor, that means a short circuit power factor angle, you can take the phi SC angle from the voltage, and that will be lagging, and that you can take the ISN, and then you can appropriate current scale, you can draw the ISN also. And if you are joining this tip of the I0, the no load current from the no load test, and the tip of the ISN from the block rotor test, so you will be getting one line. You can join this O dash and A, you will get the output line. Once you get the output line, from the output line you have to draw a perpendicular bisector, so that this perpendicular bisector you have to extend, and it should meet at the horizontal line that is drawn from tip of the I0. So that from the tip of the I0 you will get the point. This point is the center of the locus of the circuit. So this is the center, and this O dash C as the radius. See, this is the O dash C. O dash C as the radius. You have to draw a semicircle, and this will be definitely passing through the point A. So from the point A, you have to draw a vertical line. So this vertical line will meet at A, this E, that is the horizontal line drawn from the tip of the I0, E, then it will be meeting at the reference axis when it is drawn from the origin O, F. Okay, but we have to find out the D point. So how will you find the D point means you have to take the ratio AD is to ED, that will be equal to R2 dash is to R1. So you can take this factor, then you will be getting a D point. From the D point, if you are joining to the O dash point, you will get a torque line. So this torque line and this is the output line. So once you are getting the torque line means this AD and this D. So this A to E represents the total copper losses, and AD represents only the rotor copper loss, and D represents the stator copper loss. Why? Because we are taking this one as this is R2 dash, this is the rotor representation, this is the stator representation. So you will be getting the total copper loss, that is equal to rotor copper loss R2 dash factor, stator copper loss R1 factor. Then you have to take the power scale also. For taking the power scale, this AF, AD, if you are having A, D, E and F, this will be representing PSN. So this PSN value divided by the total length, this AF. So if you are taking, and then you have to consider, then you are getting the output line and the torque line, then you have to obtain the maximum torque, maximum output and the maximum input. So how will you find the maximum output? The maximum output means you have to draw a line parallel to the output line, and it will be tangential to the semicircle, and you have to get the exact point. Then if you want to get the exact point means you have to draw a line from the center C to the output line perpendicular, then you have to extend it to meet the point, then you have to take the maximum output. And similarly, you have to get the maximum torque means you have to draw a line parallel to the maximum torque line, that is tangential to the semicircle, and then you have to draw a line that is perpendicular to the torque line and then extend it, that will be meeting at point here. Then you have to take a vertical line to join to meet at the torque line point. You will get this point to this point will be your maximum torque, and you will get the maximum power input. That is the maximum power input will be, you have to draw the reference axis. So from this reference axis from the origin, remember reference axis from the origin, you have to draw a line that is parallel to the semicircle. Then you will be getting from this point, the point to the, you draw a vertical to this reference axis drawn from the origin, you will be getting the maximum input. So this way you can get the maximum input, the maximum output and the maximum torque. Hope I have answered his question. Priya?
Okay, ma'am. And
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
There's a question. What is the designed percentage slip for an induction motor?
So the percentage slip means normally varying from 2 to 5%. That depends whether you are having a small motor or a large motor. It will be varying from 2 to 3%, and that for the small large motors it will be varying from 3 to 5%. Okay, that depends. Normally it will be varying from 2 to 5%. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. That's it. That's it from the questions from students.
Okay.
Yeah. So shall we wind up, ma'am?
Okay. Where is the video? Video. Okay. Okay. Hope I have answered all the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your participation.
This was indeed a very, very interesting class for the student. Explaining the circle diagram once again. You've taken efforts to explain the circle diagram once again. Thank you very, very much, ma'am, on behalf of SAP and all the students out there. I thank you for the session today, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you.